Wow. We don't have these upstairs. Hello. I'm Jim Rutenberg. I write the media column here at the New York Times, and this is my boss. How did I get this one? No, just kidding. Chief Executive of the New York Times and also Director General of the BBC in a past life, not too distant past, and also author of Enough Said. And the subhead, we're going to talk about political rhetoric, and Mark's subhead on his book is What's Gone Wrong with the Language of Politics, and I don't see the problem. We've had grab them by the, we've had, lock her up, which has a nice ring to it. So did you...
And by the way, far beyond these shores, the winning phrase in Brexit, take back control. I was in Germany a couple of weeks ago. The Alternative for Germany, the AfD, the populist insurgent party in Germany, Weg mit Merkel, away with Merkel. This moment where things that you can tweet, these super short, much stronger, not traditional political politeness, these punchy, pungent phrases and language, it's kind of happening everywhere.
And it's funny because 4 years ago, I mean, we've always had some version of this, or even in 2004, you had John Kerry saying, I voted for it before I voted against it. 4 years ago, Romney tried to, poor Romney, he just couldn't make rhetoric work for himself. But he had done, that Obama had said, you didn't build that, and it didn't quite stick, and maybe it's because of Twitter or social media that this...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better. I mean, you can feel it building, and you can feel the conventions falling away. And I do think Donald Trump does deserve a call out. I mean, he's not just been breaking the conventions, he's been ritualistically stomping on them. And part of his, I think, direct appeal to what's ended up being a very big constituency, whatever happens tonight, is to constantly remind them that he will not play by the rules of conventional mainstream political rhetoric. And he goes out of his way, and early on, you could feel mainstream media, maybe including the Times, he would say something and there would be an assumption he'd gone too far.
Right.
And he would pay the price in the polls, and his supporters would be horrified. And for months and months and months through the primaries, that didn't happen. And things which should have been political suicide turned out to strengthen and build his support.
I mean, the amazing thing to me is when you see these polls that do the word clouds, like what's stuff. Crooked Hillary, if you repeat it enough, people say, oh, she's corrupt, she's crooked, because you keep saying it and it sticks.
Oh, and I think often he sounded like somebody obsessively circling a word in a newspaper. Barack Obama founded ISIS. He founded ISIS. He founded it. He's the founder of ISIS.
Co-founder.
And his co-founder is Crooked Hillary.
Yeah.
And the thing about this kind of drip, 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 and it breaks a lot of rules, but it sticks in the memory. And I think that in a weird way, I mean, early on, when people were thinking about 2016, there was an imagination that vast amounts of money from the Koch brothers were going to pay for millions of TV ads, and that's how the election will be stolen by the right. Well, it turns out that we had a Republican candidate with a kind of, intuitive, almost idiot-savant understanding of digital media, and it was a kind of solo DIY job, which may well have, as it were, finally run its course, as we heard earlier from Maureen and others. But for months and months, he was filling the kind of battle space with his own words around the clock.
He killed the dark money conspiracy, which was was sad to see because I love covering that, unearthing the dark conspiracy, but it's right there.
They never go away.
Mark, let me jump in with a question.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I know. We were going to step all.
We're joining.
So I think some of the audience might pick up that American is not your native language. You, of course, although you're okay at English, I got to say, you've picked it up pretty well. Before you came to the New York Times,
he's your boss too.
I know he's my boss, but I think
it's the correct grammar that throws you off. I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're defining grammar down. Don't worry.
I'm wondering, before you came to the New York Times, you were the head of the BBC.
Yeah.
If you were covering this race, some of the phrases that kept coming out of this race, grab her by the. How would you, BBC is a worldwide news organization, How would you be explaining that phrase and what's going on to folks not only in the UK, but in Africa and in Asia?
I think that in the end, we're not at a moment in history where censorship works. There are so many other ways, and I think that for any news organization, if your users, your readers, your viewers think you're hiding stuff from them, I think they have a choice and they'll use the choice. So I think you have to stuff it out. I mean, what is absolutely true is from my visits back to the UK and Europe in recent months, that the world is looking and will be looking tonight with a kind of astonished fascination as they have been throughout this campaign. And I think, I mean, it's very interesting hearing earlier from Joe Kahn that the Times newsroom thought, and we got one of our brilliant Irish correspondents, in fact, who's the Cairo bureau chief, to come and cover the American campaign, as it were, from a non-American perspective, and wrote some great stuff. Actually, it's turned out that international readers of the Times want the detail, and they're just as interested in the finer points of the Electoral College and what's going on, and will the whole of Florida go with Miami-Dade, or all of that stuff. People around the world, and we've got subscribers and readers in pretty much every continent, including, by the way, some subscribers in Antarctica. They've all been following it with immense fascination.
And tonight I was monitoring Russia Today, and I happen to know from a source that Moscow's calling into their control room, and it's all in the weeds of our Electoral College too. Larry King is fronting that.
I'm not sure you should believe everything you see on Russia Today.
Yeah, well, if Larry King says it, I'm buying it. But it's just an interesting thing that happened today was and this goes to the point of the rhetoric has been dragged down, I think objectively, is I was repeating the grab them by the X,
Yeah.
And our news desk said, no, we're not, we did it once, and we're not going to do it again. And I was kind of relieved because I don't celebrate the coarsening of the language in this newspaper.
And I think, people here will have their own views, but I think one of the particular things that we've seen, and this is strong language, intemperate language, personal insults, they're not new in politics. I do think that the scary, bullying, hate-filled, ugly kind of world of the dark side of the web, of anonymous blogging and all the rest of it, you can feel it leaching into the discourse of politicians. And again, I want to say it's happening, I think, in many countries and many politicians. Trump stands out in this. And language, gross language, which simply would not have been said from a microphone on a stage, and which seems to have its origins in this other world where anonymous people can say almost anything about each other and about public figures. That seems to very specifically, in this campaign and over the last few years, come into the core of the political discussion that most people hear most of the time.
But to the extent that it was a branding campaign and not a presidential campaign, it did get him this far. But if he loses tonight, it also may have been the limit on how far he could go.
Well, it's quite interesting, I think, to speculate about whether an aspiring new populist politician will think that Trump's run shows you should copy him or not copy him. I'm afraid that to get this far, to be, in the end, the host of a reality TV show and a property developer, and to get this far, maybe not to win, I think populists all over the world, if we're not careful, and there's obviously, you can argue about the finer points of it, but populism is a reality in most Western countries now, certainly in Western European countries, as well as the US. I think we'll think maybe it just needs finessing. Maybe there's a way, maybe it needs to go stronger. Maybe it needs to go stronger.
Sorry, can I jump in too?
Oh, please do, why everyone else is.
I've been thinking, thank you. I've been thinking a lot about the way in which language seems to drain empathy away from the candidates, from the campaign. Do you think that is that a cause, or is that an effect, or maybe it's both?
So I think, the way I think about it is like a perfect public language would be some mixture of reason and calm argument and a kind of a strong sense of emotional bonding between the speaker and the audience, all kind of held in balance. And I sometimes feel that with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it's almost like you've got aspects of that almost idealized into extremes. An extremely reasonable, thoughtful speaker who sometimes just reads the crowd wrong, and the crowd can be both in the hall or the whole country, the basket of deplorables and all the rest of it. And more troublingly, a candidate who is quite good at a certain kind of identity kind of rhetoric. It's us and it's you and me. I speak for you. I alone can fix it. I am your voice. So I'm part of this community, and it's us against them being immigrants, foreigners, elites, and so forth. And there's a dark history to that identity politics. I think it's a kind of empathy, but it's a pretty bleak kind of empathy.
I mean, he won on authenticity, even though in terms of falsehoods, he was off the charts. It's like a crazy iron. You know.
Well, I think that authenticists, politicians who rightly or claim to be authentic, they tell a story, and their core supporters, if the story sounds true, they ignore facts which get in the way, and I think we've seen that.
I just realized that said zero for like probably 10 minutes.
Thank you both so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do one more Insta poll before our next panelists come on. I'm just curious, in the audience, who in this audience voted differently from someone else in their household? Put up your hand. Couple of people. Who in this audience felt like you had trouble at some point explaining to your children exactly what is going on inside this race because there's a little uncomfortable conversations? Fewer people than I expected, although more than had. And this is actually a question that came over Facebook. Who in this room found that they were using some of the phrases from the campaign as part of their bedroom banter? Trying to... No one? No, me too. Me too. I gotta say, it's
Can
been
we ask you which one?
you cannot ask which one because my wife is watching right now. But I will point out that you heard it first that according to Mark Thompson, we might see in the UK someone saying that they want to grab the nation by the Paddington Bear and really bring them around. And with that, let's go back to the show.